I will show my fellow panelists our brief intros. I'm Ken Blackwell with the Family Research Council on the board of directors of the NRA and a professor at Liberty University School of Law. Doug.
Yeah, I'm Doug Childs with ClashDaily.com. I'm also a pastor down in Miami, if you can believe it. I mean, God's ran out of all of his options in South Florida, evidently. And I'm the father of Hannah Giles, who cracked Acorn's nuts back 3 years ago with the undercover video. And I'm also the proud pop of Regis Giles' 21-year-old huntress, who's got a website called girlsjustwannahaveguns.com. Jan?
Jan Morgan, I think I see some familiar faces from last night. Glad to see that you came back today. I'm with JanMorganMedia.com, also senior editor at Patriot Update. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, activist, a certified firearms instructor with the National Rifle Association, and a range safety officer, working on my certification with the state of Arkansas to teach concealed carry classes as well. I teach firearms classes around the country through a program called Armed and Female that I founded and created. My goal is to arm American women responsibly.
If I'd known they were already on, I would have been more careful about what I was saying. I'm just kidding. I'm Gina Loudon, and I am a radio and television type person. I have a radio show every day. You can go to docgtv.com. That's my website that will lead you to the places where you can find the work that I do. I'm the author of a book called Ladies and Gentlemen, Why the Survival of Our Republic Depends on a Revival of Honor, and I'll be talking about that later on this afternoon. But my passion from guns comes from being the mother of children and finding myself in vulnerable positions. And now, since May, I've lived in California, where guns are pretty much eradicated. And so I know the brave new world, and I'm here to warn you about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Jefferson once said that a government that's big enough to give you everything that you want is big enough to take everything that you have. Our Constitution isn't and wasn't established to protect us with government. It was to protect us from government. And so within that context, we will share with you the culture of liberty and how it is applied to the Second Amendment, but how the Second Amendment is more than just about a right to own a gun, but it's about a fundamental right to self-defense and self-protection.
My name's Doug, and I'm an alcoholic. I used to be. Hey, before I get going, I got some gifts for you guys. How many of you guys can catch still? All right, this is my Who Would Jesus Whip power band. There you go, brother. How about you? You pay attention, son. I'll see if I can get one back to the 6th row. Pretty close. Way to knock your wife out of the way. There's one. Here you go, sister. Oh! All right. Well, glad you guys came out. Hey, thank God the FBI and the Watertown Police Department got that terrorist. Got both of them. Yeah. Captured idiot boy, or suspect number 2, or what I like to refer to as a Muslim young man between the ages of 18 to 35. And last night after watching it, I think we watched it for 24 hours straight. We were just hammering it on ClashDaily.com, tens of thousands of people all over the website. I was like, man, I got to decompress. So I decided that I'm going to watch a movie with my wife. And so the movie that we tumbled onto, it was interesting because the only people that had weapons in the movie were the police and the military, and it really didn't end well for the unarmed populace. I can't remember the name of the movie. It was, oh yeah, Schindler's List. Yeah. Imagine that. I'm going to try to read this because Mary Margaret says I need to behave, and so I got to have notes and stuff to, because if not, I'll start misbehaving really bad. Hey, isn't it weird that we've got to have a meeting where we actually defend the Second Amendment in the United States of America? I mean, it's kind of baffling to me. because you'd think that would be a no-duh issue in this grand American experiment in self-governance, wouldn't you think? I mean, it's what we're founded upon. It's our rock bed. And now, unfortunately, we got to show up in Oviedo, Florida, at a Baptist church to rally people to stand up for something that ought to be an absolute given. But here we are. And by the way, and as just riding off what Ken said, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with putting the BAM to Bambi, okay? Our founders weren't fearful that one day the British government, King George, is going to all of a sudden eradicate their ability to hunt ducks. They didn't pin it so that future generations could shoot skeet, all right? And speaking of shooting skeet, how many of you guys enjoyed the picture of Barack Obama shooting skeet? Good Lord, man, he must think you guys and us are a bunch of goobers. Joan Rivers' face, her eyes, her neck, her breast, her lips, and her hips are doctored less than that photograph was. Did you see, how many of you guys shoot skeet or have shot ported barrel shotguns or rifles, especially shotguns, so we're talking about skeet. Let me ask you a question. When the shot exits the barrel at 1,200 feet per second, do you get a big black plume of smoke going out like 7 feet from the barrel from your shotgun? Because I sure as heck don't. Also, for those of you guys who like ported barrels, I don't. I love recoil. Have you noticed that there's ports on the left and ports on the right? And that when you pull the trigger and the smokeless powder ejects from the front of the barrel, that unless you got peanut butter and jelly in the left side of your port, that it usually smoke exits from both sides of the port, right? But on Obama's, we see this wafting plume of smoke like he's electing a pope, or like I'm in my dorm room before I got saved and we're wailing on a bong. Unbelievable. They must think that we're absolute daft idiots with 3 teeth and an IQ of 50. Now, the Second Amendment, folks, that the founders crafted many moons ago was not about hunting or sporting clays. It was about not being subjugated by some snaggletooth jackass in England. That's what it was about. Had nothing to do with sports. Had everything to do with self-defense, national security, and liberty. And you know what? Our enemies, they understood that we got that. They understood that our freedoms afforded us the wherewithal to have that musket, have that AR-15, have that Remington 870 in our closet, and it so terrified foreign armies that I think it was the Japanese leader. He said, oh no, we don't want to go to America because behind every blade of grass lies a gun. Hello, folks. And they got the message. But what happened here, fast forward to the 21st century, here we are, and we're, you know, what they couldn't do through brute force with foreign armies, now they're doing through seduction, through legislation, through emotional tyranny, taking us like the proverbial frog in the kettle and boiling us ever so slowly with creeping tyranny, fiat here, a little command here, a little legislation here, till we get in front of some dipstick congressman from Colorado and he's saying, you know what? That 870 Remington that you've had since you were 12, well, that's an assault weapon. And you're like, dude, well, here you go, because I don't need it, because you're smarter than me, Mr. Congressman. It's unbelievable, man, what we put up with. There's churches, there's pastors that after the Sandy Hook Massacre, and we covered in my book, The Sandy Hook Massacre, When Seconds Count, Police Are Minutes Away, that pastors are saying, you know what, we just really need to stem this tide of violence. So what we're going to do is in St. Louis, Missouri. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a toy gun buyback. And so what I champion on Clash Daily is like, let's have a Celebrate the Second Amendment Sunday. And let's give toy guns to kids who can take a Pop-Tart and gnaw it into the gun the best. Because you know what? If we don't, then our little kids are going to be little stepping fetches to a tyrannical government, and they're going to be nothing but sponges to the super soaker socialists that are in charge of this, again, grand American experiment in self-governance. How am I doing so far? All right, where am I? Mary Morgan, am I behaving? Okay. Okay, all right, here we go. We got to wake up. Listen, when Feinstein, when she starts yarbling about the assault weapons bans before the bodies have even cooled off in Sandy Hook, you and I have got to fight back with facts. And here's some facts from the FBI. Just go back 5 years. Here's what the FBI said. You know what they said? People are killed with Black & Decker hammers and mallets from Home Depot more than they are assault weapons. That's a fact, Jack. Also, remind people when they start talking about we got to get rid of them black weapons, and you guys don't hate them because they're black, okay? When they say we got to get rid of, Ken, I thought you'd appreciate that one. When they start talking about the scary black assault weapons and the paramilitary stuff that's out there, we've got to remind them that from 1994 to 2004, when the assault weapon ban was enacted, you know what went up, children? You know what spiked in that 10-year time period? This thing called school violence and workplace violence. And if you don't believe me, Google it and email me your results at doug@yomama.com. Because that's exactly what went up. It did nothing to curtail criminals. We've got to stand foursquare on the facts in this heated emotional debate so that we don't give away, again, a sacred liberty that was blood won by our forefathers. Can you dig it? Yeah. Also, when they try to give us alternatives like the Department of Homeland Stupidity to what we need to do, you know, like the teachers. Here's the teachers like, all right, I can't believe we pay these people money. I mean, it's the same kind of folks that arranged Stephen's death in Benghazi. They're like, all right, here's what you do, man. If somebody like Adam Lanza rocks up to the school, pulls up in his Prius, and he's got his little paramilitary jumpsuit on, he's got his Glock over there, and he's got his Bushmaster, then hide under your desk. The hide under your desk tactic. Oh, why don't we curl up in a fetal position too and just pee our pants? How's that? So, can we do that as well? What kind of guy, Ken, how old are you, man? 65? Come on, y'all, give it up for Ken. Good Lord. Hey, I just turned 50, and let me ask you a question. How many guys were raised by your mom and dad back in the Mayberry RFD, United States? Yeah, that if somebody came in and they started hurting defenseless people, that, especially the gentleman, that daddy told you to crawl under the desk. You know what my dad told me from West Texas? As much as I was a skinny rugrat, pick up the desk, and when moron boy walks through the door, hit him with it. Yeah. But the Department of Homegrown Stupidity, they say curl up under the desk or stab them with scissors. The only problem is the scissors that they give you in public school are those little plastic ones with the rounded edges. You can't even cut your bangs with that kind of stuff, much less kill some kid that's on psychotropes that's got Red Bull and Mountain Dew coursing through his blood veins. No, folks, it's the Second Amendment. It's arming, and then I love what they tell ladies, the college students, like Salazar, congressman in Colorado. He's like, ladies, if you're about to be raped, which you really don't know whether you're going to be raped or not because you're so daft, you don't know whether they're asking you for directions to the gym or they're going to try to sexually violate you. So since you're kind of discombobulating stuff, you need to run to a rape-free zone. Or, and I kid you not, man, the University of Colorado said, or urinate on yourself because we know how conscientious rapists are in regards to hygiene. Unbelievable, folks. Personal protection. Double tap the center mass of the donkey that's trying to accost you, and you know what? Man, it works every time. All right, I'm finished with this. You know, when it's a politician, again, that's hyped up on some kind of intricate, and oh my gosh, are they intricate, socialist agenda. Or you get the Hollywood elite. Don't you love how they preach to us about giving up our guns? I mean, you guys saw that little grainy white, black and white video thing that they did, say, we need to demand a plan, we need to stop it now, stop it now. And then you take all the 40 diphthongs that were in that video and you cobble all their movies together and it equates over 100,000 on-screen murders. And here they are saying, well, we didn't encourage anybody to do that. Movies doesn't affect people. I thought we heard that art depicts life, or life depicts art, or something like that. I thought that they sell time during the Super Bowl, 30 seconds, for $3.8 million because that kind of stuff, them moving pictures, are influential. Unbelievable. So anyway, when the left tells you to give up your firearms, when Hollywood tells you to give up your firearms, you'd say, wait, I'm constrained not just by the Bill of Rights, but by this book called the Bible. You're like, the Bible? Well, Jesus surely wouldn't want anybody to carry a weapon? Well, somewhere in the Gospel of Luke, I don't know where it is. Oh, it's in Luke 22, verse 36. Jesus told his boys, like, you know what? It's about to get rough because I'm going to go the way of the earth. I'm going to be crucified. And I'm going to resurrect. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to really ruin the ACLU's world and Richard Dawkins and Rosie O'Donnell's. But that's for later. But right now, I want you, if you have a coat, I want you to buy a sword. And when he said sword, it wasn't a decorative claymore that they got off QVC so they could commemorate the years that they were the best friends that anyone could ever have. It was a dagger, a 12 to 18-inch dagger that was used for tapping lungs in animals or humans. Yeah, look it up. It's in the Greek. You'll never forget it if you do. And this dagger was something that Christ told his boys to carry. Didn't really explain it a lot, but he told them that they should sacrifice their Versace jacket or their leather coat and get one. And so when you and I are looking to our founding documents, when you and I are looking to a place to ground our common sense in regards to why we should protect ourselves, why we should defend the defenseless, why we should oppose tyrants, and why we should uphold the Second Amendment, always appeal to the greater law, the law of God, where the most gracious lawgiver on the planet, I'm talking about 7-pound, 13-ounce baby Jesus, told us in Luke 22, verse 36, to get a sword. Now, granted, it wasn't a Sig Sauer or an AR-15, but it was lethal defense for the first century, which translates to the 21st century. People get packed, stacked, and ready to whack. Thank you.
We don't know who's next. You switched it up. Few of us might just be a little bit ADD. I don't know if that happens to any of you, but it definitely happens to me. You know, from my perspective in the media, what I love to do is equip my audiences to talk about these things themselves, because you already know all the good reasons why you should be defending. Is there anyone in this room who doubts that you have a responsibility, I would say a God call, to be out there defending your Second Amendment rights? Raise your hand if you're doubting that. Okay, it's just being sure, because they're going to kick you out now. No, I'm kidding. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you about how do we package this to speak to, excuse me, the useful idiots that are out there running around who are, by the way, winning the message. Have you noticed that? Now, I know we think we had a little victory, but I can tell you that that wasn't so much of a victory. My husband, actually, he's a former senator from Missouri, and he told me it was going to go that way. But we are losing in the battle of public opinion in so many ways, and so that's what I really want to talk to you about. And I also want to make sure we don't give up the ghost while we are doing this in the process. So I actually had anybody in here read Town Hall? Online Town Hall. I had a column in Town Hall yesterday talking about exactly this. Now, I do media, and that's true. I have a radio show, and I do a lot of television, just little quick hit kind of commentary stuff. But what my background is, my background is in psychology, and I'm going to tell you my degree is not because I'm trying to impress you, because it really honestly isn't that impressive. Any of you who have done a lot of academia know that it's pretty much a dog and pony show, just like most things that the left creates. Probably used to be rigorous, but it isn't anymore. I have 2 master's degrees and a PhD in psychology, psychologically related fields, and guess what? The mental health fields. Well, the reason I want to talk to you about the mental health fields is because as we were watching these events take place at Sandy Hook and the left beginning to capitalize on that crisis, shortly after that, we almost got some media attention on the Gosnell, I don't know why I can't say his name right, Gosnell atrocities in Pennsylvania. Is there anyone in this room who, just be honest, if you don't know, just raise your hand a little bit so no one else can see it, but raise your hand if you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying Gosnell, because I just want to not gloss over that if you don't. Okay, so the Gosnell thing, he's the guy, an abortionist. I think he isn't even a doctor, if I remember correctly. There have been, the trial is going on now. The lamestream media has mostly ignored this trial. Babies being worse than aborted. I don't have my glasses on and I can't see how young the kids are here in this room. But just let me say, the most heinous, disgusting, after birth abortions that you've ever seen in your life. The pictures have circulated on the internet. I pray that you haven't seen them because I know your heart's already, and people like us don't need to see that, but the rest of the world does. And anyway, he ultimately, again, I'm trying to package this for you, for the kids, ultimately did really disrespectful things, also involving, dog and cat food jars and milk cartons with those babies after he murdered them. And so he's as disgusting as they come. So what does the mainstream media immediately do? They resort to talking about what a human he is. Yes, he killed some babies, but he probably didn't realize they were full-term babies and trying to survive. He had already tried to kill them with a drug before they were actually born, and he can't help it they survived. Poor guy, he's a naturalist. He loves frogs and fish. He had fish tanks all over his office. Obviously, he's not somebody who would want to kill these babies on purpose if he'd only known better. Well, that's not exactly how the court case itself is carrying out. So immediately they're putting, they're saying, well, he maybe it's not his fault at all. Maybe he really has a love for helpless creatures like frogs and turtles because he had so many and made sure they all got fed on time while he was going in the other room to kill these babies. And maybe what it is he just really didn't want to subject these babies to this world. You think that's it? So we're immediately looking at the mental health of this man. We were immediately looking at the mental health of the murderers at Sandy Hook. And now guess what? Boston, what are we doing? We're looking at the mental health. Everybody's talking now about, oh, these boys, they were nice. First of all, they're not boys, they're men. And secondly, they're terrorists. They're not brothers either. I don't want to hear them called brothers anymore either, because when I think of brothers, I think of my 2 little 6-year-old boys. These are not brothers. These are terrorists. So they're immediately talking about, oh, well, how were they raised? Their mothers seemed a bit estranged. Their family was strewn all across the world. Somebody probably got a hold of them and made this all happen to them. It wasn't really their fault. So let's just put it on the mental health field. Well, I'm here as someone from the mental health field to tell you why you can't do that. And I wrote a column about this yesterday, and I hope you'll check it out. DocGTV is my website, but I'm going to talk to you about it for a moment because I'm really fearful at this moment that we are going to make a terribly wrong step in the defense of our Second Amendment rights. We want to say immediately, okay, if we can take the, and I did this, when I saw this whole thing happen, if we could just take the focus off of the Second Amendment, yes, I'll do just about anything to get the focus off of the Second Amendment because I don't want them to do any more doing to our Second Amendment. But this is the problem. As someone who has gone through all of that indoctrination, it's not education, it's indoctrination. As someone who's gone through all of that indoctrination in our universities, I can tell you the mental health field has no answers. and I need you to hear me on this because it's really important. Anybody got a kid in here who's majoring in psychology? You are wasting your money. It is a farce. It's a fallacy. It's a lie. They are fakes. They have no answers for you. So if we take the focus off of the Second Amendment, which sounds like such a nice idea, let's not talk about guns. Let's just talk about, yes, pouring more money into mental health. I'll tell you what you learn in psych school. You learn 3 things. Number 1, you learn how to perpetuate your own job. You learn to make people victims so they come back and pay you. What the heck good does it do to have a client come to you one time and pay you your $150 and go away? No, I'm going to tell you how sick you are. I'm going to tell you how long you need to come here. And if that doesn't work, if I haven't convinced you how sick you are by now, I'm going to put you on some medicine and you'll for sure be sick by then, right? That's the first thing we learn. The second thing we learn is that above all else, we are Marxists. Nothing else matters as much as the continuation. Who here knows about Alfred Kinsey? Anybody here know about Alfred Kinsey? Well, Alfred Kinsey used Nazi war prisoners to do sexual experimentations on, and babies, by the way, to do sexual experimentations on. Judith Reisman is here today. She wrote the book on it. You can hopefully attend her speech. And Alfred Kinsey is the sickest of all human souls. And he, by the way, is what all of our modern psychology is based on. You get Kinsey if you don't like Freud and the fact that everything that drives you in your whole entire life is only one thing and one thing ever. Listen, I am a happily married woman for more than 20 years. I have the best looking husband. You can Google him. People are always like, wow, he is hot. But so I am not embarrassed. And I am not a prude, but I am telling you, we are more than sexual beings, and that is all that the psych schools want to teach. And the reason they need to teach that is because you have got to believe that you are incapable of being worthy of a God who saves. Because if you believe you're worthy of a God who saves, you can't believe in Karl Marx. He has to be the ultimate for you. That's the second thing that the schools teach you. And let me tell you something. You learn nothing else in terms of theory. Everything you learn is Marxist in psych schools. And I absolutely promise you, and I went to a religious school, and I've taught in Baptist universities, and guess what we teach? Same stuff. Sorry, I hate to tell you this, but it's the absolute truth. I actually quit a job at a Baptist school because of this, because they were forcing me to teach this malarkey. So the third thing that they teach is that you convince people that you are just somebody who likes to help people because you are, after all, in a helping profession. So therefore, your motives are unquestionable. People in the helping fields, they want to help people, right? Oh, those pastors, don't go to some place now with a religious bent for therapy because they just want to impose their values on you. At least they have values. It's more than they have in the psych schools, I can tell you that much. This is why I see a freight train coming at us. Do you see it now? When we are transferring the whole Second Amendment issue, and I'm scared to death of that too, onto the issue of mental health, we are going to give them more funding to continue to indoctrinate our children in the schools, lie to us, make us sicker, put us on more drugs, make us more victims, and guess what? In the meantime, take away all of our liberties. This is terrifying. You have to say no to this. This isn't even what I told them I was going to speak about when I told them I would speak. That isn't what I told them I was going to speak about. But this occurred to me about 2 weeks ago, this path that we were on now. And when I saw it happen first with Sandy Hook, I was alarmed. But I thought, well, you know, maybe they'll give some of that funding to church therapists, do you think? Never. Don't dream about it. Don't fantasize about it, folks. You have better things to do with your life. It will never happen. This money, they will be sure that all of this money that they're going to put in now for these mental health programs are going to go to the most liberal institutions that are training people in what they're really training them in is Marxist philosophy. That's it. They're indoctrinating them. And I can speak to this because I have sacrificed. You can read about my personal story at townhall.com. As I said, I put it on there, my story about my own indoctrination. They tried to keep my master's degree from me because they were not going to let me out until I was not going to criticize the field. Well, guess what? And so anyway, so I will keep talking about this. As you keep watching events happen, watch how they're angling. to say this is all about mental health. Well, we would have never had a Kermit Gosnell killing babies if only someone with a mental health degree had taken the time, or if he'd known he could seek help. He might be like some sort of baby murderer, psychopath type, but if someone would have intervened, no! They don't intervene. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. The drugs don't help. There is no such thing as therapy. The therapy is intended to keep you coming back. That's it. So they're going to keep taking every national story you watch, and it's all going to become about the mental health field. Why? Because they know they can quietly slide the knife in our back while they erode our liberties, and we're not even going to know what hit us from behind. So don't let them take that from you. Now, when you were talking about, my whole realization of the gun issue came to me. I was not raised around guns. I really wasn't a value in my family. That's why I really just wish you'd adopt me, if you don't mind. You're my age, so that'd be awkward. But I really wasn't raised in it. But I went to school at St. Louis University, and like I said, you can read my saga there. You no doubt will if you go to that post, and they're probably really mad at me now because I pretty much put it all out there. But there were 3 rapes in my building while I was in graduate school, and I was going to night school because I was working during the day, and they weren't doing anything. These rapes kept happening. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, what's already occurred to most of you, but I was just so young and stupid, I didn't know the difference. I think I might need to defend myself. Well, I was in a gun-free zone, couldn't have guns on the campus. It was a school rule. If you got caught with one, it was automatically you were out. There was nothing I could do except bring a taser. And the rapes continued. Meanwhile, all this, and they all happened in my building, a small building. It wasn't like just in the whole university. I'm talking about literally in my small building where I went to class every night. And I realized at that point how important Second Amendment rights are, especially if you are a woman, and then 10 times that if you are a mother. Because if that criminal knows you're not armed, you're a sitting duck, and so are your children. Now, as we talk to women about guns, I want to say one more thing. As we talk to women about guns, we have to be careful. We have, close your ears, Doug, we have an automatic propensity not to like guns. I'm just going to admit that. Raise your hand if you're a woman in this room who your nature says, I'm uncomfortable with a gun. Just your nature. Oh, come on, girls. I know you're lying to me. You are not comfortable with guns.
Girl power.
From your innate nature. We are, because we are just made differently. God designed us differently, and I understand that. So as you're talking to women about the Second Amendment, I want to ask you one thing. Don't tell women they have to go own a gun. I tell women, if you're going to own a gun, you need to not just target practice, you need to practice in your stilettos, or you need to practice in a running position with your gun, in your heels, in your business suit, or however it is. Do you want to shoot in your cowboy boots? Well, that's nice. How often do you wear those to work, and how often are you in dark parking lots by yourself in your cowboy boots? Not very often. You better be practicing in what you are wearing when you're going to be. But second thing is that I want to say, don't tell women, be sure when you talk to women about guns, and this goes for you men that talk to them too, be sure and say, you don't have to own a gun. Let them know that, because women will vote against guns if they think they're going to have to own one. And so you can explain to women, you don't have to own a gun, but you want me, because I'm trained, to be able to defend you if we're hanging out together at the mall and there's a rapist lurking in the car when we get back to it. Right? If you have your children and I have my children and we're out to dinner and we walk out to the parking lot together afterwards, aren't you going to feel better if I'm trained? You don't have to own a gun ever, but please don't take away my right to defend you. I know I said one more thing, but I've got 2 more things. Just one more after this. On the whole answer to the gun solution, just because I haven't heard it brought up here today, and I talk about this on my show all the time, and it's in my book, ladies and gentlemen, too. You guys need to definitely know this. If you haven't heard this, and probably all of you have. How many of you know what I'm saying if I say the Israel model of gun? Okay, in schools. Okay, guns in schools. There is one thing that works. One thing that works alone. For the abortion answer, the Kermit Gosnell, it's not mental health. It's saying abortion is completely illegal after the first trimester. Now listen, I'm a no abortion ever person with any excuses. I'm just not there at all. I've done post-abortion counseling and it is never the answer, and I can testify to that for another hour if you had it. But there's one answer to gun control, and that is our Second Amendment rights stand free and completely unencumbered, because they have no rights, first of all, to your Second Amendment. But secondly, the guns in schools with trained people, this is what we need to talk about as far as answers. We need to give people solutions, not just tell them what, no, you can't take away my guns, you know, and we're sounding like Farmer Joe standing there with our guns that we may not know how to shoot it and we might accidentally shoot you. That's what they're picturing when you're defending your Second Amendment rights. You know that. That's what they think you are. The Israel model in 1970, they passed that every school has to have armed volunteers. Now, it's good enough in this country for the president's children. He has armed guards in his kids' school. It's good enough where I live in Hollywood for all the movie stars. Their kids go to schools. Go ahead and try and visit one. You'll be greeted by an armed guard. I can absolutely assure you it's not good enough for your kids' schools, unless you homeschool like I do, and then you don't have to worry so much. But the point is that armed, trained people in schools is the only answer. It's the Israel model. Who knows the answer to this question? It's my last question for you. How many kids have died in school shootings in Israel since 1970 when they passed it? He got it. You get a t-shirt for your wife. I've got a cute t-shirt for you that says "Out of my cold dead hands." I'm going to give one to you for your wife because that is the answer. 0. I'm a researcher. I was trained to research. I was trained to look at data. This is simple math. Anyone can do math of 0. I have trouble when you get up into the calculus. I'm not going to lie. I source that out for my homeschooled children, and they're very thankful for that. But 0 is a number pretty much anybody can digest. 0 children dead in Israel since 1970 when they passed that. Give me one good argument why that won't work here. It's simple math. God bless you guys. I'll have copies of my books and my shirts and stuff out somewhere. They haven't even told me where yet, and I'll be speaking to you guys tonight. I want to be sure and say there's these amazing young patriot young men here that want to have a little cluster. We're going to do it right over here afterwards, and we're going to talk about ways that they can help get their generation excited to be patriotic Americans. So we're going to do that right after this, and I'll be over there with everybody who would like to join into that. Thank you so much.
The bad thing about speaking last is, and I always end up speaking last, by the way. I was the last speaker last night in the main auditorium. And of course, I'm the last speaker here today. The bad part of that is, usually the people who talk in front of me say what I was going to say. Doug covered, I was going to talk about the Christian response to the Second Amendment. Doug covered that very thoroughly. Thanks, Doug.
Pleasure.
I was also going to cover some stats and some things that Gina mentioned. So that's okay. No, I'm glad, because that gives me a chance to talk about some other things. I've always got something to say. How many of you were here last night when I made my speech in the main auditorium? Okay, good. So I don't need to repeat some of that. Thank you. I want to cover one of the things that I didn't hear Doug say when we're talking about the Christian response to the Second Amendment. You see, I was on senior staff at a Baptist church for 7 years. I was in charge of the broadcast media department. And during that time, I was also on Facebook and had my social media pages as well as my website. I started posting things about the Second Amendment. People in my own church, as well as people who call themselves Christians from around the country, started chastising me because of my position, because of my love of firearms, because of my strong stance in support of the Second Amendment. They said, well, you know, really, Christians aren't supposed to be, that's just kind of an aggressive thing. And I'm trying to figure out, where the heck, when did we determine that being a Christian means you're passive? That's why I love Doug Giles' style of preaching. You know, he's in your face, no nonsense kind of preaching. Was Jesus a pacifist? No. Did Jesus cower under rocks and hide when the subject matter was a little bit controversial? Did he worry about ticking off his friends or losing business because of what he said? No. So, as Christians, we are to emulate Christ, aren't we? Isn't that just like Muslims are supposed to emulate Mohammed? He's their version of Christ. How would you like to have to emulate a documented pedophile and mass murderer? Thank God that our Savior was holy, so we can spend the rest of our lives, even though none of us will ever be holy, we can strive for the goal of emulating Christ. And Christ said that we are to be the salt and the light. The light. when you're the light, that means you are shedding light. You are exposing, you're bringing attention to injustice, to wrongs. You're sharing knowledge, right? How can you be the light to the world if you aren't free and courageous enough to stand up and share? And then there's that part about being the salt. You know, I remember when I was reading that in the Bible, I thought, what does he mean by being the salt? The salt. You know, what does the salt do? What does salt literally do? When you put salt on a wound, what does it do? Besides burn like heck. It absorbs, it cures. And it's a little uncomfortable. You are to be up front and out there sharing truth with your friends and your neighbors and your family, even if it's a little salty, even if it's a little uncomfortable and they don't like it and they want to get out of your presence, even if it makes them mad and they become your enemy, it's your responsibility to be the salt and the light if you're a Christian. And also, if you're a man, you are to be the spiritual leader of your home. I believe being the spiritual leader also means being the defender, the protector of your family. How can you protect your family if you don't own a gun? It's like I said last night. How can you defend anything? Defending the right to life and liberty. How can you defend if you are not armed? I am amazed at how many pastors, how many Christians are not armed. Just back in the green room, I was talking to several pastors and they started asking me about my love of guns. Well, when did you get into all this gun stuff? And I said, well, how can I not be into gun stuff? You mean you don't own a gun? Oh, no, I said, oh, well, tell me this. If someone breaks in your home and you're the man of the house, and you're charged with protecting the life that God gave you behind you, your wife and your kids, how are you going to do that if you aren't armed? What, are you going to stand there and pray? Oh, God, please help me. You know, if I was facing an attacker, I would pray. I would say, God, please help my bullet go right there, center mass. I am so tired, folks, of Christians having this soft tiptoe around mentality. They're falling into that politically correct, super liberal, progressive crap that we're being fed and have been fed for decades. We've got to get out of that. And let's talk about what some other religions are doing. Since you guys so adequately covered some other things, I get to talk about something that I really want to talk about that's a thorn in my side. And the reason it's a thorn in my side is because this is another area where Christians have come after me and said, you know, you really shouldn't bother those people. You really shouldn't talk about that because, you know, that's another religion. And since we have the Boston situation, I think this is a good time to bring it up. Because I want you as Christians to not back away from discussions on this issue, and you better become educated because there is much more ahead, folks. I want to talk about Islam. You see, there is a religion that's not telling their people to disarm. Do you know, according to the Christian Action Network, which did a documentary that's amazing, I challenge you to go on YouTube and look this up. It's called what the heck is it called? Christian Action Network, and it's about Islam. Just type in Christian Action Network Islam. They did a documentary. They actually infiltrated and went into Islamic terror training camps, not overseas. No, folks. They're happening right here in the United States of America. There are 35, currently 35 Islamic terror training camps on American soil. Do you think our United States government's worried about those folks? Are they tapping into their phones and checking their emails and infiltrating their camps? No, they're worried about Bible-carrying, God-fearing American patriots like me and my firearms. They're concerned about us. You know, the domestic terrorist. I love the fact that Gina covered the mental health issue. And of course, she's the perfect person to cover that because under Obamacare, how are you going to like it if the doctors get to start deciding who's crazy? How are you going to like it if liberal doctors decide, you know, if you believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, you might just have a little bit of mental instability and you probably shouldn't have the right to own a gun. There are 109 verses in the Quran that dictate hate, murder, and terror against all human beings who refuse to submit or convert to Islam. I've read the Quran. I studied it thoroughly. Go to my website, go to my Facebook page. I've listed the verses for you, 109 verses. I've written them out. So when the news commentators talk about, oh, these latest acts of terror by Islamic radical extremists, they're lying to the American people. Lying. The Muslims who are committing these acts of terror are not radicalized. You know, to radicalize is to take something and pervert it so that you can act out in violence. As I just told you, there are 109 verses dictating the violence against innocent people that is occurring in this country. So, Muslims who are committing these acts are not radicals, they're not extremists. They are devout Muslims following the dictates of their Quran. Just one time, I want one of our news commentators to say, well, these devout Muslims who are murdering people instead of these radical Muslims, just once. Gina, you're on Fox News sometime. The next time you're on with Hannity or Cavuto and they use that term, I want you to say, excuse me, but Neil, those are devout Muslims, not radicals.
Can I just say Jan said so? No, I'm
No, just say, I refer you to the Quran, 109 verses. Yeah. I love Gina. Dr. Gina. I wish I could say Dr. Jan. I don't have a doctor in front of my name. I have to go back for it. Okay, Dr. Jan, doctor of the Second Amendment. Let's talk about something else that Christians will say about Muslims. Oh, and I've had, even my pastor came after me when I started posting on my social media pages. Of course, I don't post hate speech, folks. I don't hate anybody. I don't even hate Muslims, okay? I don't call them Muslims or those nicknames. You've heard horrendous names for those folks. I call them Muslims. And what I post on my website and my social media pages are facts. Simple facts. I don't have to name call them. I don't have to make up stuff. I post the words from their own Quran. I post statistics from their own history. Did you know that in the 1400-year history of Islam, now remember this, because you need to share this with your friends. In the 1400-year history of Islam, Muslims have murdered over 270 million people. If any other religion had those kind of numbers going on, if any kind of religion was still committing acts of terrorism like Muslims are on a daily basis around the world, there would be an international summit of the United Nations to address this horrendous problem. But of course, that's not going to happen, is it? Because we know who runs the UN. Do you know that since 9/11, Muslims have committed over 19,000 deadly terror attacks? The number's almost up to 20,000 since 9/11. You're not hearing about that on the mainstream media, are you? So you see, folks, that's a religion that is very definitely into training, defending, and aggressively attacking those who will not submit or convert. While Christians are standing back here saying, we don't need to talk about Islam because that's a religion. And if we start, bashing that religion, well, then, of course, we got our religion. And, of course, we got violence in our Bible, too. But you know what? How can a Christian sit there and say, oh, but we have violence in our Bible, so that's violence in their Bible? Well, I challenge you to read the Quran. It's kind of like the Bible. There's an Old Testament and a New Testament, the Mecca and the Medina. The violence in the Bible occurred Old Testament. Jesus Christ changed everything. You give me one directive, just one in the Bible, from Christ, who says, go out and kill people who won't become Christian. Go chop off their heads, cut off their fingers, blow up their buildings. So when your friends say, but I have Muslim friends and they're the nicest people. They would never hurt anyone. Some of you may have Muslim friends or Muslims that live in your neighborhood. They're quiet, never say anything, don't do anything wrong. And you just think, well, you know, surely they don't condone all this terrorism. You know, I'll excuse little kids because little children, whatever they're born into, they don't have a choice. But there are no excuses for adults. I hold adults accountable for the religion they align themselves with. So when you're talking to your Muslim friends or your friends who have Muslim friends who say, don't talk about Islam, I want you to ask them this. Do your Muslim friends attend mosque? Because if they do, they're required to participate in something called zakat, Z-A-K-A-T. Look it up. It's a mandated form of tithing. We all know what tithing is, right? Well, theirs is mandated. And our own federal government has already determined that a portion of that tithe is being funneled to support terrorism. It has to. It's in their bylaws. So either knowingly or unknowingly, all American Muslims who attend mosque are supporting terror. So ask them, did you know that your tithe is, oh, don't take my word for it, just go look at the FBI, it's out there, the information. Did you know too that the Muslim Brotherhood has a documented plan for the destruction of America from within through a process called civilization jihad? We're all worried about physical acts of terror. We're all running around trying to stop, you know, we're so reactive instead of being proactive. What I'm trying to do today with you in this Second Amendment speech is move you from, if you're not already there, I have a feeling I'm preaching to the choir, but if you're not already there or you know people who are not there yet, we need to move from reactive, passive to proactive and aggressive. So on the issue of Islam, people ask me all the time, okay, Jan, what's your solution? What are we going to do? If it's in their Quran and it tells them to do that, then how are we going to solve this problem? What are you going to deport them all? What's the answer? Here's my solution for the answer. I heard someone say Jesus. Yes, okay, well, if you can convert a Muslim to Christianity, good luck. There are actually people who are doing that, who are out there, and that's their mission. And there have been people who say they're successful at it. But here's what I believe is the solution. When I first brought it up, I was on a radio show, and when I brought it up, everybody got quiet. They're like, oh, did she really say that? When I brought it up on my social media pages, everybody was quiet. You could have heard crickets, crickets, crickets. But as time has gone on and we've seen more people die, innocent people die at the hands of Muslims following the directives of their Quran, the more people that die, the more people are coming on board saying, you know, she's got a good idea. Here's the solution for America. We need to look back at the First Amendment and determine what our founding fathers meant by religion, freedom of worship, freedom of religion. And I think we need to define that. And I think we need to say, any religion that's book of directives commands its followers to commit crimes that are against the laws of this country, then that religion should be declassified as a religion and reclassified as a terrorist organization. It should lose its tax-exempt status and be banned from practice here. That's my solution. Not naming Islam, just simply stating that we live by constitutional law here, not Sharia law or any other kind of law. And you don't have the right, because your God tells you to go murder innocent people. Oh, and by the way, has anybody here heard of Dr. Hudi Jasser from Arizona? If you haven't seen his documentary, I challenge you to look at it. It's called The Third Jihad. I remember that one. Dr. Jasser is a Muslim. He's been a Muslim his entire life. But his family, he was one of those Muslims. And folks, I honestly believe that there are as many Muslims in this country who do not know what is in their Quran as there are Christians who do not know what's in their Bible. So I'm giving the Muslims in our country a little bit of a break. But Dr. Jasser had no idea. When 9/11 happened, he came out and he said, what, this is not Islam. No. So he had been raised by Muslim parents who taught him that Islam is peace and love and sharing, and they failed to tell him about all the bad stuff. This is a doctor, very intelligent man. So he goes to all these imams all over the country after 9/11. He says, okay, we have to stand up together. Let's have a big press conference and let's stand up and tell the American people, this is not Islam. We do not condone acts of terrorism. And you know what? Not one single imam, not one would stand with him and make that statement. Not only that, he was excommunicated. So he started studying what the heck is going on here. And during his studying and his research, he discovered the Muslim Brotherhood's documented plan for the destruction of America from within. Folks, they're following it. Look it up. It's a plan. It's right there documented. Our own FBI uncovered it years ago. They're following it to a T. Through civilization jihad, which is the methodical infiltration of virtually every facet of our government and society. And it's happening right under our politically correct noses. And we're allowing it to happen in the name of religion. What we found out, and this is something that Noni Darwish, another Muslim, by the way, Noni Darwish exposed this in her book called Cruel and Usual Punishment. She said, when a Muslim says, and I noticed there was finally one imam who went on Fox News and he said, after Sean Hannity just kept pressing him, do you condone acts of terror? Does Islam condone acts of terror? And finally he said, we do not condone acts of terrorism against innocent people. There you go. Key word, innocent. Noni Darwish, who was a Muslim for 30 years of her life, said the key word is innocent because Muslims do not believe that anyone is innocent except Muslims. So when a Muslim says, oh, we don't believe in terror against innocent people, what they mean is against our own. Otherwise, that's what Muhammad tells us to do. Finally today, for the few of you who weren't here last night, I want to share this about speaking out and standing up, because it's something that I'm sharing around the country with people who are feeling a little overwhelmed right now because they feel like we're losing the battle. And folks, we are losing. Of course we are. But the battle isn't over yet, because the fact that you're here today means that you care. But you've got to educate your children, people. Gina alluded to it. Doug did. Our children are the future. And right now, they're in the grasp of the liberal progressives, the communists. Everything that is wrong about America is leading our children in our public school systems. Okay? So you either have to homeschool. Congratulations, Dr. Gina, for doing that. How did you do that and get 2 master's degrees and everything? Okay. Amazing lady. Okay. You've got to educate your children. Not only about what's going on in the world, you've got to stay on top of their textbooks if they're in public school and make sure that they're not being taught lies. You've got to teach them about Islam, people, because I'm telling you that's coming to a head. They haven't even started good yet. And you've got to get strong about speaking up and speaking out and sharing truth. And you can't let the fact that we've lost this battle, but not the war, you can't let it get you down. You can't feel overwhelmed. You can't be afraid to share with a group. Do you know, I speak to Republican groups, I speak to Tea Party groups, I talk to gun groups. I mean, I'm all over the libertarians, I'm all over the place. But I actually had a group of Republicans ask me to come and introduce Mike Huckabee and speak after him at an event in North Arkansas. And the week before I was supposed to speak, I got a call and they said, "We're so sorry, but we're not going to have you speak after all. Because we're afraid that, you might affect the tone, that your message is a little too radical for the tone of the evening." And I said, and what? Oh, and they said, "And your association with the Tea Party, that's not, that's troublesome." I said, "Okay, please tell me one thing, find it on any of my websites and my social media pages. I want you to name one statement that I have ever made that is radical. I want you to tell me one statement that I have ever made that is not the truth, that I can't back up and substantiate without facts, because I am a journalist, and when I put information out there, you can guarantee yourself that you can copy and paste anything from my pages, because I have studied and I can support it with facts, and it is the truth." And I said, "Then I want you to tell me one thing about the Tea Party. I want you to go through their mission statement, and I want you to find one thing that doesn't align with conservatism and the Republican Party as it originally was. One thing. And then you tell me what that is." And they couldn't do it. Folks, when you speak out and tell the truth and stand up, when you're the salt and the light, there are prices to pay, and I have paid them. I've had my life threatened repeatedly for speaking the truth about Islam. That's why I got so into guns, for those who really want to know the truth. You think I'm kidding? No, I used to just have a little 38 that my dad gave me when I went off to college. Never really shot it that much. And then when my social media pages moved from 50,000 to 100,000 to 150,000 to 200,000 and up to 300,000 people, suddenly my information that was just shared by a few folks is being shared by masses. And suddenly, people are finding out about who I am and what my message is. That includes the Muslims, and they have come after me in force. And the FBI suggested, "Jan, why don't you just, when I kept turning these death threats over, they said, why don't you just take your pictures down from your social media pages, take your name off, and just create a, American Patriot for the name of your page. And keep posting if you want to post, but just don't have it associated with you, because we can't protect you." And for a couple of days, I sat there and wallowed in self-pity and thought, because I had a daughter at home living with me, and I thought, is this really fair to put her through this? To put her life on the line because her mother is out speaking the truth? And after a couple of days of hiding under a rock and thinking, I got mad, really mad. I said, "You know what? This is the United States of America. I have a First Amendment right to express not only my opinion, but free speech. I have the right to tell the people the truth. And I shouldn't have to hide. And if standing up for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, for God and family and country, if that makes me a radical and an extremist, well, I'm in good company. Meet the Founding Fathers." And so I put my picture back up on my page and my name, and off I went. And along came the death threats. But funny thing, since we're talking about the Second Amendment, am I out of time? Okay. Sorry. Funny thing about the Second Amendment, I had never posted pictures of me with my guns on my pages, because I was advised that the federal government is all over social media. It is the greatest tool of the CIA. And so if you own guns, and especially you own guns that are not registered to you, which, by the way, that's legal, that you don't show what you have. So I never had any pictures on my pages of me with guns. But when the death threats started coming and the madder I got, I thought, you know what? These folks think I'm some kind of little prima donna softy. I think I'm going to show them who I really am. And so I splashed my NRA Certified Firearms Instructor certification information on my pages. And then I put a picture of me with my Bushmaster AR-15 as my cover photo. And then I started talking guns, guns, guns. And then I started showing pictures of me at the range with my target and that nice grouping right around the bullseye. And you know what? The death threat stopped. Amazing, huh? So arming yourselves, people, and preparing for what is to come is not only smart, it is essential. And telling your friends and raising your kids like Doug Giles has raised his daughters. Man, I love your daughters. Righteous, rowdy girls. That's the kind of father I'm talking about, folks. Every man should raise his daughters and his children like Doug Giles has raised his children. I tell you what, nobody's ever going to mess with Regis Giles or Hannah Giles. No way. That's what I want for your daughters. And just think, folks, as Christians, if we all stand up and speak up for what is right and just and arm ourselves, we are a formidable force. And that's what it's going to take, because an armed America is a free America. God bless.
We have gone past our time, but hopefully I hope you think that it was valuable information and perspective that we shared with you. About a week before his election in November the 8th, President Obama told a pretty large crowd of folks that we are a week away from fundamentally transforming America. And since coming into office, the left and President Obama have attempted to transform our market economy into a government-controlled economy, our family-centered society into a government-centered society. But most importantly, and I wrote a couple of weeks ago on this note, to transform our national philosophy founded upon the primacy of the individual and the supremacy of God to one founded upon the primacy of the collective good and the supremacy of the central government. Ladies and gentlemen, what stands between the actualization of that promise of transformation and us as a nation is the Constitution of the United States, but more importantly, us. And I would hope that if you had one takeaway from the presentations this morning, it is this simple fact. And that is that the only way that you can protect limited government is by electing folks who respect limited government and ultimate individual liberty. In closing, there's a question that is asked in Psalms 11, verse 3. If the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? To put that in a secular context, the question to us is, if the foundation of liberty and limited government in this country is challenged or attempted to be transformed, what will you and I do? The answer is in Hebrews 12, verse 1, where we're told that we must persevere and run the race that is marked out for us. Not the race that that cloud of witnesses are looking at and thinking about, but they're looking at how we run the race that is marked out for us. Ladies and gentlemen, this awakening, this whole session is about being awakened to our responsibility to be salt and light and to commit ourselves to taking a stand, not just for the Constitution, but for the moral foundation that has made us the most prosperous, the most democratic, the most God-fearing nation in all of human history. And we've done it in about 238 years. God bless you.